Welcome to this episode of Game and Earn. In today's video, we're going to look at something a little bit different and hopefully identify some titles you should be looking for while you're out game hunting. In this particular video, we're going to cover just the Nintendo Wii and Wii U consoles. We won't go over the price fluctuations of the titles, but want to go over some titles you might not think are valuable, but actually are. These will be titles you can find at pawn shops, garage sales, thrift stores, or flea markets, so we won't include obvious titles such as Earthbound. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video and find some ways to game and earn. Kicking off the list is a title that anyone who resells should know about, but if you don't, here's your chance to learn. I can speak about these games separately, but since there is a variant where they are both on one disc, we're going to tackle them as a combo. I'm of course talking about Wii Sports and Wii Sports Resort. Easily the most active selling title on the system, these were included games for a large majority of the systems that were sold. These usually came in a sleeve that just held the game in the manual, but there was also variants released in full game cases. For value, both of them go for roughly the same price though, so there isn't much of a difference there. But the amazing thing about these games is that if you combine their sales, you get a staggering number of over 200 sales a week.
Vegeta, what does the scouter say about his power level? It's over 9,000! What, 9,000?
But since the Wii sold over 100 million systems, that really shouldn't come as a surprise. As a buyer, you should always keep an eye out for this title, because frankly, it should come in almost every single lot. These games are an easy $20 minimum sale, and they usually move incredibly fast. Luckily for us, most of the time people think these are throw-ins and don't think much of it, but sometimes it's actually the most valuable game in the lot. Lastly, you should be on the lookout for the combo disc. That's the one that includes both of them on a singular disc, as seen here. You won't find this one nearly as much as the singular titles, but it sells for a bit more and is frankly a pretty uncommon find. Next up, we're going to cover not an actual game, but instead a peripheral that will appear every now and then for the Wii. I'm of course talking about the special Wiimotes from the Mario series. There are 6 different ones: Mario, Luigi, Peach, Yoshi, Toad, and Bowser. Each of them come with a matching sleeve and are all Wii Motion Plus. Regular Wiimotes can be found pretty easily for around $10 a piece, and sometimes much less. Due to that, some people don't associate or know that these unique ones go for a little bit more, with most of the series averaging roughly $40 for a non-complete box copy. But when you find these, you're going to want to check a few things first. Namely, you'll want to see what the battery compartment looks like, since most people usually didn't take out the batteries, and this led to really awful looking corrosion. Secondly, make sure it has the sleeve. These Wiimotes without the sleeve will not sell as fast and probably go for about $10 less on average. Back to a game now. This is one I've been dying to cover, but the timing just hasn't been right. Let's talk about Rhythm Heaven Fever, an extremely fun game that just doesn't want to stop gaining in value. This title has shot up nearly $100 in the last 9 months, and has become a steady title right around the $175 mark. Granted, this is one of the more wacky titles on the Wii, but it seems to have developed a bit of a cult following. It has been sought after for years, but now it seems to be getting the proper praise it deserves. While it is a more valuable title, you can still find this in lots on a semi-regular basis, but you likely won't have much luck at pawn shops. This is a title you're going to find all over the place though. Let's talk about Wii Party. An extremely generic looking box art, similar to Wii Music or Wii Play, this title is vastly more valuable than those. This party style game utilized the Nintendo Mii system to its fullest extent, and while not for your average gamer, it sold and continues to sell extremely well. Finally, I could include a couple of titles from this series, but I'll talk specifically about Guitar Hero Metallica. One of the deepest libraries for the Guitar Hero series, the Metallica version of the title is a rather valuable game, selling for roughly $50 for a complete in-box copy. Alongside smash hits and Guitar Hero 5, These titles really seem to hold their value, with very few dips in their price. It's still something that the average person loves to play to this day, as the game is extremely fun to have around when you have a family or friends over. You're probably safe to ignore some of the other titles and Rock Band, but keep an eye out for these when you're hunting. In my experience, they can be had for regular low-end Wii prices and are often a very good game to throw into a bundle. Moving on, we're going to look at the follow-up console to the Wii U. This console had a much smaller library, but it does have some really uncommon titles that you would not expect to be valuable. So, here are some titles that you can hopefully find in the wild when hunting. Starting off with the follow-up to Wii Sports, Wii Sports Club is as popular as ever and sells for even more. There is admittedly less volume in this game, but I don't think anything can compare to the volume for the Wii titles. That being said, this is a great title to find for the Wii U, which has been over the $60 price point for the last year. Perhaps this might be too mainstream of a pick, but in my experience, there are still people out there who either don't know or haven't played the Xenoblade titles. For the Wii U, we had a really good entry in Xenoblade Chronicles X. This extremely long JRPG is also extremely fun and fills the void that Nintendo was missing for RPG titles. And it's clear that people still seem to enjoy it, with an extremely healthy sales volume and a steady price of roughly $50 for a CIP copy. You can be sure that this will be a fast mover. When found in lots, you likely aren't going to get a great deal though, as the person selling will likely know what they have, but I have been able to find this title in pawn and thrift stores before for a rather decent price. Moving on to a game I honestly didn't expect to include on here, as it's not exactly remembered as a good title, let's keep an eye out for Sonic Boom: Rise of Lyric. One of the many recent and very sad entries in the Sonic series, this title has a pretty good sales volume and has a pretty safe floor of roughly $25. A barely $15 game 2 years ago, I've added this title to my list to keep an eye out for, and it's certainly popped up from time to time. You won't be able to retire off of this, but plenty of people who had this title simply don't recognize Sonic anymore.
I don't know you anymore. Anakin, you're breaking my heart. You're going down a path I can't follow.
Because of Obi-Wan.
I can't really say I blame them either. This title was rough, and you can't pin it all on the Wii U. If you've played any of the pre-2000 Sonic titles, you're probably better off not even booting this one up, honestly. But still, you definitely want to keep an eye out for this title as a reseller, as you'd be surprised at how cheap you can find it for. Inching closer and closer to the Grail territory for the Wii U, let's talk about Game & Wario, an actually fun title. As with all Wario titles, this is a collection of mini-games where Wario essentially tries to screw with the player. The twist is that you have to use the gamepad in most of them, but while that's not exactly fun for me, it's sort of the entire purpose of the system. That being said, this game has exploded in popularity and price over the last 3 years, previously selling for under $30 for a complete in-box copy. Now, this title is safely above the $100 price point and doesn't seem to be coming back anytime soon. With a good but not great sales volume of 360 copies sold yearly, it will likely be a quick mover. But all of that being said, this is not exactly a common title, and it's only going to show up in lots or stores a handful of times in a year. But when you see it, you should act fast because this is a great title to pick up and sell. Our last title is technically a Mario title, which I tried to exclude from the entire list, but I felt it was really worth mentioning. I'm speaking about Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games. The most valuable entry in the Mario Olympics game series, this game released a year before the Nintendo Switch. With the Wii U already treading water, most people had moved on or were waiting for the Switch to release. This created a lull in sales, and not many copies seem to have been sold, but there is still a healthy market for it, with over 300 sales a year and a rather steady price of at least $60. This is a safe bet to pick up. Unfortunately, due to having both Mario and Sonic in the title, you might be unable to get a great price for this. You're going to have better luck at a pawn shop or a thrift store in this case, and more often than not, you're going to get a great deal. And if the price is too high at that moment, be sure to come back in a couple of weeks, and if it's still sitting on that shelf, be sure to ask.
Do anything! Oh!
And that is going to wrap up our list. So remember that many of these titles might be valuable now, but weren't for quite some time. Remember that prices fluctuate a lot. With these and other titles, they're going to increase or decrease as time passes. We think that these titles are bound to stay valuable though, and we're going to keep trying to identify titles that should increase. Finally, don't be afraid to look up a title that looks interesting or has a different name than you're used to seeing. And with that, we're going to wrap up this video at Game & Earn, and I hope you learned some new ways to take advantage as a reseller with this information. As I said before, our regularly scheduled videos will come out soon, so keep an eye out for those. We hope you enjoyed this content, and if you did, feel free to like, comment, or subscribe. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.